Hey, everybody. How you doing, Jim?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Good. So people are starting to come in, see us live. So let us know where you're watching from. Welcome, everybody. Let us know in the comments. Okay. And then just wanted to remind people who are watching from the Facebook group. Let's see. We have Thomas Benner. Good to see you here. Hello from
Hey,
Austin.
Thomas.
Thanks for being here. Thomas's tips, tricks, and techniques. And then if anyone is watching from Facebook, let me just remind you to please give StreamYard permission to show your name and profile pic. So I'll be able to credit you when you comment or ask questions. That's just the little link that you see, StreamYard.com/Facebook. Give that a click. Yeah, here we go. See Facebook user. Cheers from Dussel, York City Studios. Yeah, so make sure to give StreamYard permission to show your name and profile pic so we know who that is. From Dussel, York City.
Otherwise, you're a mystery guest.
Sounds like they know you. I see you got Jim there. Cheers from Dussel, York City Studios. I might have to quickly look out into Facebook and see who that might be. Can't see it right now, but okay. But yeah, as a reminder, welcome everybody. Let us know where you're watching from. Don't be shy. People are shy these days. Okay, we got Yeti Kashendi from Nashua, New Hampshire. Yeti Fine Art Portraits. Good to see you here. Oh, good. Got my one of my admins and friends, Malcolm Pollock. Good to see you here.
Been a while.
And Dave Ellison from Liverpool, UK. Thanks for being here. Okay. Well, Jim, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Thanks very much, Andrew. And hey, thank you all for joining. My name is Jim Babbage. I am a senior solutions consultant at Adobe on our education team. That means I get to work with the Adobe software all the time, get paid to do it. And I support our field sales teams on the education side and our education customers. So it's a great place to be. I was a teacher for 21 years and a commercial photographer before joining Adobe. So I've managed to stay in sort of the areas that I like and be working at a great place as well. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here and share with you guys some of the things I do with Creative Cloud Express from a standpoint of digital storytelling. So Andrew, if you want to go ahead and do the split screen, or did you have that video you wanted to roll first?
Oh yeah, thanks for the reminder.
Yeah.
Oh, so that was Kenneth Shinneberry. Ken Shinneberry.
Oh, Kenneth, hi.
Good to see you here, Ken.
That's it.
So yeah, so before we jump right in, let me just give a thank you, a shout out to StreamYard. Makes it all possible. A professional multi-streaming app, but makes it all very simple to use. Perfect balance. So thank you, StreamYard. Here's a little taste. Thank you, StreamYard. Yeah, I love StreamYard, though. It's great. Just easy to use, but they always have new features coming in, and just it's great. Okay, so let me share your screen.
Sure, great. Okay. Thank you, sir. So I've got quite a few tabs open, you may notice, and we're going to go through a lot of these today. I just wanted to give you a bit of background with my main background in communications is photography. And I have my photography portfolio here up on Adobe Portfolio at jimbabbage.photography. which has all the latest and greatest stuff. I tend to do a lot of photo stories, and that's why I thought this would be a really good match here, is just because this is the kind of thing I do. I communicate visually and in words. I love to write and I love to take pictures. And combining those two things together is an awesome experience for me. So you can find me at my website, or if you are a Behance member, check out Behance. I'm there as well, and you'll see a lot of the same projects. I utilize some of the integrations between Behance and Adobe Portfolio to basically repurpose my content in a couple different locations without having to rewrite everything. So that's a huge benefit for me. And it's a great resource as well for finding and being inspired by other artists and other creatives out there. And of course, what we're going to be focusing on today is going to be primarily Creative Cloud Express, and specifically the web component, which I call Creative Cloud Express Web, or CC Express Web, however you want to phrase it. But it is the web page component. You may all have known of it as Spark Page. And in fact, on a mobile device, on iOS, and it is still referred to as Spark Page. The app name did not change. It only changed through the web offering. So that's just something to be aware of. It's a little confusing sometimes because people don't realize that it's either still there or it's actually just got two different names depending on where you are. So first things first, I'm going to pop back to Behance for a minute, and I want to open up a project. This is something I created a while ago on digital storytelling. I won't go through this exhaustively, but I do like to share this because the term digital storytelling, we've probably heard this all a lot, especially recently in the past couple of years. There's been a lot of stuff going on, and we're doing a lot more communication in a virtual environment than ever before. So we're seeing a whole range of workflows and engagements that are happening in a much different manner than ever before. And from that perspective, I think that digital storytelling, becoming proficient with this, is more important than ever. And I don't mean just for a photographer or a painter or an artist, but I mean anybody in business, any business that needs to get their message out there, any researcher who wants to make people aware of their research, anything along those lines, being able to effectively and engagingly tell your story in a digital format, to self-publish and get your content out there, is more important than ever. If you're a student, it's great because you can start establishing your brand while you're in school, right? Before you even get out there into the workforce. These are the kinds of things that you can do. When I was a teacher, I taught photography, photojournalism. And one of the things I used to tell my students was that just because you're in class doesn't mean you can't work in the field, right? If you can get out to an event and cover an event effectively, there's nothing stopping you from taking that work to a local paper and seeing if they'll produce it, see if they'll pay for it. So just because you're learning about the trade doesn't mean you can't necessarily get benefits from it from a portfolio perspective, possibly even from an income perspective. Now, digital storytelling is not new. And this is something else I really want to remind people of, is that it's been going on for a while in different flavors, different levels of complexity. In fact, going back as far as 1990, you may recognize the name Ken Burns. He's sort of considered to be the father of the first digital story based on his series on the Civil War. It was a video series, but he took a series of still images, didn't have any video footage from the Civil War. Go figure. So all he had to work with were still images. And rather than just have these static photos show up on screen, he developed this methodology for panning and zooming through a static or still image to give some life and animation and interest to what was happening on screen. So you weren't just listening to a voice and looking straight at one picture. You'd see images sort of pan across. You'd see blending, one image to the next, that kind of thing. And to this day, that technique is often referred to as the Ken Burns effect. So just something you might want to be aware of. It's a great little Trivial Pursuit note, possibly. And just saying Trivial Pursuit probably just dated myself. But hey, so that's something to think about. One of the great things since 1990 is that the technology has gotten better. The tools have gotten easier to use, less expensive. And in the case of Creative Cloud Express, well, there's really no cost. You can start off with it for free and do quite a bit without making any kind of financial investment there. Just have your free Adobe ID or use a social media login too, and you can start telling your stories, right? Okay, so let's hop over here to Creative Cloud Express. And like anything in Creative Cloud Express, the way to get started is with that big blue button or that big purple button over in the upper right corner there. Just click on that. And there's a lot of focus on the graphics side of things in Creative Cloud Express in terms of creating Instagram posts and Facebook posts. But if you look in that first column down near the bottom, there's web page. Okay, so I can choose that option right off the bat. Now, while I'm here, before I go right to that, I'll just point out quickly, there's a lot of great new features inside of Creative Cloud Express for doing other things like resizing images, removing backgrounds from images. And I use these tools a lot in conjunction with Creative Cloud Express for web, so I can create imagery to go with my stories. And there's also video capabilities as well, and also some PDF options too, if you're in the premium versions there. These are all, I believe, these are all premium options, but I'm not positive on that. So let's go to web page, and it'll load up. And like the whole goal behind Creative Cloud Express, and whether it's creating a graphic, creating a web page, creating a short video, the idea is it's easy to use, right? It's pretty self-explanatory from the get-go as to what you need to do first, right? And what you need to do first when you're creating a web project is add a title when you're in that production mode. Now, what I typically do before I get here is I take some time and I kind of map out in rough notes, or sometimes even just in my head if it's a short story, but I'll map out what I'm going to do. It doesn't mean I'll know exactly what images I'm going to use right off the bat, but it will mean that I've got a plan of how I'm going to sort of approach things. And that can be really helpful just from a reference perspective. And it'll also give me an idea of how much writing I think I'm going to be doing. And the reason I bring that up is that if I'm doing a lot of writing, I tend to do the writing in a word processor, notepad, something else. So I have that text there. And the benefit to that is I can really quickly and easily copy and paste elements and drop them in where I want them inside of an Express web page. So just that's something to keep in mind in terms of what you're doing. So adding a title, I'm going to type in here morning at the marsh. This is from a recent little photo walk I did, and I've actually got a finished project of this as well. I'm just going to start the process here, and then we're going to take a look at a draft version of it, and then in the final one as well. I can add a subtitle here. Throw on weekend with the birds. All right, so I've added in my title, I've added in my subtitle, and if you look down near the bottom of the screen, there's that plus sign. I often say with Creative Cloud Express, if you can click a plus sign, you can create something amazing in pretty short order. And that's true here as it is with the graphic component. So I click on the plus sign, it gives me one option, a photo. So what it wants is a large, nice big image as a background photo, right? Sort of a title screen, splash screen, if you will. Think of it as the first screen in a PowerPoint deck if you want. And we've got lots of options for adding images. We have access to a lot of creative Adobe stock imagery right here. I can look at free content. If I have the premium plan, I can look at premium content and utilize that. Because I'm a photographer, 9.5 times out of 10, I'm using my own imagery. Sometimes I don't do that, depending on what I'm writing about, if I'm doing something for work, or if there's just something I need to illustrate a concept, and we'll see an example of that later. And I don't have the photography. I don't have the time or the budget to get to the location where I need to take a picture like that. So I can choose to upload a photo from my desktop. I can also click on the three dots, and you'll see I can use my webcam to take a photo. I can go right to my Lightroom account, which is typically where I end up going 9 times out of 10. I can go to Creative Cloud, Dropbox, Google Drive, or Google Photos. So I'm going to choose Lightroom because that's my happy place. When I'm not here in Creative Cloud Express, I'm typically editing images that I've shot earlier in the day. So I'm going to go to Lightroom. This is a great integration if you're working with Lightroom. It's really, really handy because anything you store through Lightroom desktop or through Lightroom mobile that ends up in the cloud is also available to you right here within inside of Creative Cloud Express. That's super convenient. So I don't have to go and export images out from Lightroom to my hard drive to upload them. I can just pull them up. If they're in the cloud, I can get access to them. As you can see here, I was photographing some stock images earlier this week that I've recently just submitted to Adobe Stock. And I've got a few other bits and pieces here. But if I look further down, these are the images. Some of these are the images I took on the weekend. So let me just see. I'm going to find something I think works really well. Try not to make anybody dizzy by panning up and down. I'm going to go with this one, I think, here of the red-winged blackbird. And I just tap on it. It's automatically brought in.
Nice.
So really quick, really easy. And it'll take a few seconds to load up a full resolution version, but it'll eventually load up that way. There we go. Nice and crisp. And the bird is right behind my title. And this is something a lot of people don't realize you can do with Creative Cloud Express, is you can reposition that title in different quadrants with inside that main splash screen. So the default is right in the middle, but I can drag this straight up, put it at the top. I can drag it down, put it at the bottom, and I can even put it over on the sides. And you'll notice how the alignment of the text changes, whoops, as I do that. So I'm going to go, I think, right at the top here. I kind of like right justified. So I'm going to leave it there. I like that. Okay. So there's my starting point. The bird is nice and prominent, and my title's easy to read. One of the other things I love about Creative Cloud Express is that it takes into account that I may not be viewing this project, this published project, in a web browser on my desktop. I may be looking at it on one of these, right? Or on a tablet. So one of the things I can do is I can sort of tweak the positioning of imagery to better suit a different aspect ratio. And Creative Cloud Express does the rest of the hard work of scaling images, of lining text, things like that. So it's a readable and enjoyable experience on a smaller mobile device. So if you take a look down at the bottom here, now that we've added an image, you'll see I've got three controls here: focal point, replace, and delete. I don't want to delete it, but this focal point one is the one I want to point out. This is where I have some control over the positioning of this image. So if I click on that, you'll notice I get this little dot that shows up in the middle of my screen. And if you take a look in the upper right corner, I can actually see a portrait or vertical orientation of my project. So this is sort of a rough idea of how it's going to look like on a smartphone. Okay. Now, in this case here, it's actually not bad. The bird's in the lower third and the title is going to be up top, so I'm probably in good shape. But if I take that dot that's in the middle, you can see I do a couple things here. I can readjust the vertical positioning here on my desktop. So if the bird was a little too high or a little too low, I can sort of make some tweaks there to keep the main center of interest away from the title so it doesn't get obscured. But I can also drag to the left and right. And what I want you to do is pay attention to that little preview box in the upper right corner as I do that. You'll notice that as I drag over towards the right, I'm just seeing the bulrushes and the reeds. If I drag back over to the left, the bird comes back into view, and then I end up on the other side. So I can get a good approximation. I kind of like something like that, maybe. Although maybe I like him looking in. No, I think I'm going to go like that, which is probably just about where it was to begin with. I'm not always that lucky. So I do have to make position changes. So once I've got a spot that I like, I just go to the top right corner and choose Save. That locks that positioning in place. And then from then on, I just scroll. And as soon as I scroll past that main image, you'll see all the options you have for content you can add. Obviously, you can add photos. That's a key thing here. You can add text. You can add hyperlink buttons to pretty much any external website you want to. You can embed links to video through YouTube or Vimeo. And we'll do a little bit of that today. I've got a bullet point to remind myself to do that. You can create a photo grid, pretty standard concept here where it's a grid of photos. You can add together and create your own layout within reason. And there's two really interesting design conventions, tools, whatever you want to call them, that are inside of Creative Cloud Express. Something called a glide show and something called split layout. The split layout probably is pretty self-explanatory. The layout is split. Half of the screen is going to be a photo. The other half could be text, other images, hyperlinks, things like that, or even video. Glide show takes a little more explaining, and that is where we end up selecting one or more images to act as large background images, kind of like our cover shot here. But we can place additional content on top of the images. And I use this tool quite a bit, depending on what I'm doing, but I use it quite often if I've got a lot of information, but I want to have a nice, interesting background. And a lot of times I don't discover or realize I'm going to need it until I'm getting started with my project. I realize how much text I'm writing and that there's a lot of basically white space behind the text. It's kind of boring. So if I realize I've written 2 or 3 paragraphs of content, so okay, we need to reconsider how this is being laid out, and I'll go and most of the time utilize a glide show technique, and we'll see a couple examples of that in just a minute. But basically, these are all the different things I can add. I think all of these are pretty straightforward, but I'll just point out a couple bits. If you choose to add a photo, it's taking me back to my last spot, which is Lightroom. I'll just go to my See More one, and I'll just grab another bird. Everybody likes birds, downy woodpecker. And when I add an image in line with my story, I get options on how that image is displayed. I get this kind of snapshot kind of feel. Okay, that's my inline option. I get the ability to fill the screen, very much like we saw with the cover, with the title image. I can do a window, okay, which is kind of a nice visual divider between content. And it gives me the ability to add a caption if I want to. And I can do full width, which means it's going to make sure that the image does not bleed out of the edges. All right, so Creative Cloud Express is scaling the image so it's always going to fit on the wide end inside of my project. And then I've got options to move or replace or delete, so I can reposition the image slightly in the order that it appears inside the project. I'm going to go back to just inline here for a minute. And one other thing I want to point out, and this is really new, and if you look really close, you'll see it in the title screen, the splash screen as well. This little gear icon right here. This is something that educators specifically have been asking for a long time. This gives you the ability to incorporate alt text for images.
Great.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, to be perfectly honest. But any inline image and I believe image grids as well now, supports this ability to add alt text for each individual image. That's great news if you're starting your first project. It's challenging news for people like me who have 80 projects already published, and I'm going to be slowly updating that as I go. But this is fantastic from an accessibility perspective, and it's been a long time coming.
And I was going to say it reminds me of Adobe Portfolio, which is where I have my website built with.
Exactly. Yeah.
I do think they need to add a little bit more SEO elements, though, to Adobe Portfolio, but I do like being able to add alt text and things like that. So
yeah, it is getting better, and the team really is dedicated to making it an amazing tool. But it's like a lot of things with a company that has so many different products. It's who's getting the love now, and sure. what things can be done in a timely manner. The fact that we've added the alt text to Spark I'll say the alt. I'll trip over this a few times, and I'll say Spark instead of Creative Cloud Express. But the fact we've added alt text here was a huge surprise, and a pleasant surprise for me, because we weren't sure when this was going to happen. We knew they were working on it, but there was no real internal sort of roadmap as to when it would be live. So that's really beneficial. So if you are building your projects out, please take the time, if you're incorporating images, and work with the alt text, either to put in descriptive information or if it's not a critical image, if it's not necessary to understand or better understand the story, you can always set it as a decorative element, which means screen readers will ignore it. Okay, so it's up to you. You have the choice. Okay, so text, I'm just going to put in the piece of text here. You've got some basic formatting options here as well. I can choose to set this as an H1 or an H2 for a little more semantics, again, a little more accessibility. I can do a decorative display with a pull quote concept. That's what that looks like with this specific theme, and we'll talk more about themes later on. If I don't want this, I just click on it again. I go back to my regular text. I can do bulleted lists, numbered lists. I can boldface the text, italicize the text, add a hyperlink to the text, and then change the alignment, left, center, and right justification. So I've got some basic font controls there. Okay. So I'll leave that in there. In fact, I'll make that a big piece of text just so it stands out. You notice it gets a bit of a decorative element, and the decorative elements will vary depending on the theme you choose. We'll talk about those shortly. Okay.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go right ahead, Andrew, please.
So once you've highlighted the text like that, I see the different kind of text attributes. What about color? How do you access changing?
That's a really good question. And the color is, again, controlled by the theme. So there are a series of themes. Maybe I'll just talk about that now.
Sure.
Up in the upper right corner, you'll see a little icon or little text box that says themes. If I click on this, I see two sets of themes. I see that the top set are my branded themes. These are themes that I created based on my logo. So I've been able to control background colors, text colors, the actual font choices, some of the decorative elements like underlines and things like that. Those are things I can control. This is all part of Creative Cloud Express Premium because I've been using the branding tools. But below that, anybody can access any of the, I think there's close to a dozen or more themes, right? So I'm going to go back to the top of my screen here a minute, and I can just sort of click through, and you'll see as I click through these, we see that the fonts change. We see that how the title is changed in this case. And if I scroll down a bit, we'll see that the headings change as well. And that's where the text colors come into play. So these themes are basically canned themes. You can't make any changes to them, but you can sort of go through and browse through what there are in these default themes to determine which one is most suitable. So they have different moods, if you will, and different kind of effects applied.
Can I ask a question for
Yep.
Thomas? Thomas has a
Sure.
question. So Thomas says, can we add a hyperlink to images? Perhaps go to
Okay,
the
good
corresponding
question.
Behance page.
Good question. Not to the image itself. That is not something that's available yet. I would end up going ahead and either adding a button, okay, to create a link to wherever I want to go, or I would use any of the inline text and add a hyperlink to that. I can't do it with a heading, but if I had regular paragraph text in there, this is a paragraph. Select that text and click on the hyperlink button and pop in any URL. Good question. Okay, so the themes are a way to control stuff. I'm going to go back into my my main themes. I think I was on this one. Looks like, no, it was the bold one. Okay, there we go. Yep, that's the one. So those are your ways to control sort of the look and feel is through the themes. You can have custom themes, as I said, if you branded it with the premium version, or you've got the default range of themes to pick from if you are using the free version of Creative Cloud Express. So there's lots of ways to
Jim,
choose things. Yes.
Thomas asks again, and do you mean an invisible button over the image?
There is nothing that can go over the image. Yeah,
right,
it's
so it's
the
underneath
images
the
are
image.
static. Yeah. They are inline, they're static. There's no way to add a hyperlink to a graphic. A button would be a button below or above the image, okay, that would link out to whatever you want. So that's definitely something that if it's something you'd like to make use of, then you can certainly reach out to. I don't have the URL top of my mind, but we do have a wish list for Creative Cloud Express, and ask for it as a feature. And like anything else, the more people that ask, the more likely it is that those things will happen. So excellent
So,
question,
so
and thank you
Thomas,
for
you can
clarifying.
email them with your various emails and pretend you're
Yep.
different people. And
Yeah, there you go. All right. So a couple other things I'll point out while I'm in this sort of authoring mode here. At the very top of the screen, you'll see a few options. I have a settings option here. I can actually set up a Google Analytics tracking ID if I want to. I can show header and footer information if I want to, and we'll see what that looks like in a second. Currently, I have it turned on. I can preview my project. So as I'm building it, as I'm creating my story, I can click preview and I will see it the way an audience member would see it, somebody viewing the website. And you see, if you take a look at the top, how we get that little graduated bar that ran across the top, you'll see my logo over on the left, and then a button that says view my portfolio on the right. That's the header. So if I turn off the header, I don't get that information. But I can scroll through this. You'll notice there's no more plus signs anymore. This is actually what it looks like. And there's the footer down at the bottom with this information, social media links, my logo, and a link to my Behance page. So I can see how this will look from an end user perspective. Now, it's not published yet. No one else can see it, but I can test it out. And make sure that when you're done previewing it, you hit the little X in the upper right corner to go back to editing mode. Two other options here I want to point out. One of them is presentation mode. This turns your project into a full screen presentation. Gets rid of all the Chrome, right? And you can actually scroll as you normally would. You can also use the arrow keys, left and right arrow keys, to move through your project. Okay. So if you use the up and down arrow keys, it just moves I'm not sure how many pixels at a time, but the right and left arrow keys move to the next major element on the screen. So I'll just press escape to get out of that. And then the last one here, and we'll see this in action and more probably in a bit as well, is the sharing options. Publishing and sharing the link. Obviously, once you've written something, you want to get it out there, share it through social media. That's where this happens under this link here. I have an option to print, which basically gives me the ability to convert this to a PDF. Now, it's not the prettiest PDF. It is serviceable, but it's not something that's going to be as interactive or as engaging probably as what you see on the website. But if you need an electronic version of your file, of your web page, that's one way to do it. I can also send a link to Google Drive, and I can invite people, which means I can have other people collaborate with me on the same project. So if I've got someone else who's got other imagery, or they've been doing some research for me on this article, I can have them contribute to the article. I still own it. I'm the one in charge of publishing it. The other collaborators can't publish the work, but they can add to it and reposition elements, change things up inside the document, but they won't be able to publish it on their own. It'll have to be up to me. And one last point I'll make about collaboration is that it's not, it's asynchronous collaboration, if you will, meaning that if I'm working on the project, nobody else can. If my friend Fred is working on the project, then I can't work on the project. Okay. At the moment, that's the way it is. But as you've probably noticed, if you've been working inside of Creative Cloud Express over the past few months, things are changing. There's new services, new functionality being added. So who knows down the road what level of capability we'll have. It's exciting time for this particular product.
Great.
Okay. Andrew, did you have a question?
No, I said great. Yeah.
Okay, good. So I'm going to hop out of the authoring mode here. I just want to point out a couple of things. I have put together a page, an Express page with some additional links.
I do have a quick question.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
So when you create like a page like this, and I guess it's two questions.
Okay.
Is there a way that you can connect it to an already existing website? And is there a way that you can give it its own kind of personal URL?
You can't personalize the URL. It is hosted. You could probably come up with, I think you could use a bit.ly link if you just wanted to shorten it. But you can't customize the link in any other way because it is hosted through Adobe's servers. But you can embed this. There's an embed code that's available when you start to share it. And I have super secret embed codes for Behance and Adobe Portfolio as well that you can use. So if you wanted to drop it into as a part of your WordPress blog, for example, you could actually embed it as an iframe there
Good.
if you wanted to.
Nice.
So that's a really good question, and it's something I do quite often. If I'm working inside of Creative Cloud Express and building out a project, it won't just stay here. I'll usually build out a project in, say, Behance, and then embed the link to the actual Creative Cloud Express page inside of the Behance project. I don't have to rewrite anything that way. They can access the project right from Behance, which extends my reach for people seeing the work. And then they can either view it there, or they can, click on the link and go back out to Creative Cloud Express.
And that is one thing I also enjoy about Adobe Portfolio is I can get
Mhm.
the embed code from a video on YouTube and then very simply put it up on a
Yep.
sub page on my Adobe Portfolio.
Yep.
And then Thomas says, I'm excited that Adobe is providing a means to create web pages without coding. It does not replace all of Muse, but it is significant.
I agree, Thomas, and I feel your pain. As a former fireworks instructor and author, I know the experience you're going through all too well. But yeah, we do have this option, and like I said, I'm very hopeful. I don't know, full disclaimer, I don't know the future, but I'm very hopeful that we'll see more embellishment and enhancement to the web component of Creative Cloud Express over time. That's
Great.
Fingers crossed. So this is a finished piece I've made available for today's presentation. It has links to some examples. These are some of the buttons I was referring to, Thomas. If I click on any one of these, this will take me out to any of these projects. Like, for example, here's one I did for work, for a presentation I did for an education event. If I click on that link, it's going to take me out to that project. It's a Creative Cloud Express page. And you can see here a different style, different text, how it's handled, how it's displayed. This is one of the situations where this is a stock image. I did not shoot this one. And then I used this as a presentation live, actually in back in the day, just over 2 years ago, where we were actually flying places and meeting people in person. I used this for actually at a live conference. And you can see here, as I'm scrolling through, this is a really good example of that term I used, the glide show that Creative Cloud Express Web can do. Get this nice big background image, and then we've got content, dropped in. In this case, I've just basically put text in here. But you can see too, if you watch really closely in the bottom left corner, as that text window comes in, you notice there's a little bit of an animation going on. So it's a little bit of, interactivity happening there. And I'm just scrolling through this at a slow speed. But I could incorporate not just text. I could have put images into these boxes. I could put links to videos. I could, add in, that kind of thing. And then I've also got links out to other projects. So again, that glide show becomes a really powerful storytelling component to this project because the images I'm using tie in with the content that is in these little pods. Okay. And I think from that perspective, it works out really, really well. And I just basically sort of build it out. And in some cases, like I said, I may have done a lot of writing before I realized, this really needs a glide show. And that's why having the text in a text editor of some kind, it's really easy to copy paste and move things around. The one thing I'll say about text inside of Creative Cloud Express page is that it's not as flexible to move things around. Like it's not a block that you can click and drag, not yet anyway, to a different location. You literally have to copy it, paste it somewhere else. So that can be a little bit tedious if you have a lot of text. A little easier if you're just pulling from a document and bringing it in. And there's a different style for buttons. So depending on the theme, all your display elements will change, right? Okay, so that's just one example. There are other ones here. I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but the project I want to show you is one I just recently published. I started a fake version of it just now called Morning at the Marsh. This is the actual finished project. It's live. It's published out there. I used Creative Cloud Express to create the collage that we see here as a splash screen. So I don't have to do a single image. I literally used Creative Cloud Express's graphics capabilities, and built out a collage of what I thought were the most important images from this little photo walk, put that together, sized it accordingly, took a little bit of trial and error to get them the way I wanted, and then saved that as a JPEG file, and then in this case uploaded it as an image from my computer, and then dropped in my text. I wanted to show you this one here just to show you sort of the finished thing. I've pulled in maps in this case. You'll see this is a glide show in action again, slightly different usage. I've got a large map as the background image, and I've got a smaller map in the actual pod with some text and a caption. So, and as I scroll through here, you'll see I've done a few different things with the text. I've just done them as inline images. I've created small photo grids. I have done a split screen. So we've got a large image on one side, and then we have text and imagery and or videos on the other side. And then there's a larger photo grid here as well. So we see all that work out, final inline images, and then one more glide show with a similar collage. And then the project is basically wrapped up from there. And I have a photo credit here and so on and so forth. We'll see how to do all that in just a second. But I wanted to just quickly show you that.
Nice.
Now, when I get back, let's see here. That's my main one. I can close.
And I was going to say, my friend John says, nice scrolling effects.
Yeah, it is. It is nice. It's. I love when we came out with what is now Creative Cloud Express. Started off as something called Slate, then became Spark Page, and is now Creative Cloud Express. I dropped PowerPoint like a hot rock. I don't do presentations. I don't do slide decks. This is
right.
Everyone asked me for a slide deck. I said, no, my slide deck is online. It's this. It's so much more interesting. It's more fun to create. It's more engaging, I think.
My friend John also said, hopefully Adobe will continue to add features like HTML editing.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll go as far as HTML editing. We have this tool called Dreamweaver for that. But the whole idea behind Creative Cloud Express is ease of use.
Right.
And a short sidebar story here. When I used to teach, I mentioned I taught photojournalism students, and every semester I would make them build a photo essay website using Dreamweaver. They had 4 weeks. We had 4 to 5 classes in which to learn enough HTML and CSS to be dangerous and build out a website that showcased a photo essay. I can safely say that the only people that ever saw those websites were me and anybody else who was in the classroom, because you cannot learn a lot about web design in a few short classes. They were all serviceable, they were all online, they all worked, but they weren't something they were particularly proud of in terms of visual appeal, if nothing else. Creative Cloud Express would have made my life, and frankly my students' lives, way easier, because building out a photo essay here is like nothing. It's so intuitive, it's not funny. So yeah, I get where you're coming from about HTML editing, but we have other tools for that. There are other tools out there too beyond Adobe, but we still have Dreamweaver kicking around, and it's sort of that level from if you want to get into the code. I don't think we'll ever see Creative Cloud Express become anything that touches code very much. Like, I think the closest we get to code is an embed code. That's about it, and that's a copy paste function. So there's my draft. I just wanted to point this out. This is in editing mode. How can I tell I'm in editing mode? I see plus signs everywhere. All right. So as I scroll through here, this is my indication. This is an editing mode. And I wanted to point this one out because I also experiment in my editing mode too, as I'm building out my story. What I finally publish is not necessarily what I started with. And in this case here, the maps are a good example. I tried out a couple different techniques. This is the one I went with, the large background image with the small pod on the side. But I also originally actually started with a photo grid, right? And I didn't like it. There was too much negative space. I didn't feel it was impactful enough visually. So I ended up experimenting and trying this out with the glide show, and it worked out, I think, really, really well. And as I said, while I'm in here, I can click on any one of these and just type in my alternate text or set the image as decorative. In these cases here, these would definitely include alternate text because they are an integral part of the story. And I just wanted to scroll down here a bit further. I think I might have had a couple other examples. Yeah, I was playing around again. You saw in the final one, I had this split screen view, but then I also was originally playing around with a photo grid that had all of the bird images in it in one shot. And I just sort of experimented to get what I want. One of the nice things about a photo grid, if you can do it, if you're working with your own images or you're sourcing images, try to find a mix of vertical and horizontal images. Two reasons for this. One of them is if you can mix the two together, you get a really much more visually interesting layout. If these were all horizontal images, then it would be a nice grid, but it wouldn't have as much visual interest. So by dropping in an image here or there that's a different orientation, you can get a little more control over your image grid. The other thing I'll point out is you can always make an image a focal image when you're building out the grid. There's a setting for that. You just say basically scale it up. It'll make it stand out as like a hero image, the largest one there. You can do it with multiple images, but I typically do it with only a couple, and I leave the other ones smaller so I have some visual appeal to the design. But again, another grid here, and just scrolling through. A lot of this is very similar to the finished project. So when I get to the point where I have something I like, we come back to share. All right. And when I choose share, I'm going to choose publish and share link. Now, up to this point, this project, this draft version is not live. No one can see it. No one can get to it except for me. And because I've been making changes in a couple different spots and we've had a couple things happen under the hood, I may have to make a little update. There we go. It takes a second for it to reload. There we go. So let's do that again. Share, publish, and share. So I'll give this a title. Quite typically, the title is taken from the project. In my case, for whatever reason, it didn't grab it, but I can just choose morning, type in, not choose, but type in morning at the marsh. Set a category. Critical Express wants you to pick a category. I'm going to choose photography. Author, I'm going to turn that on. If I turn it off, my name doesn't show up at the bottom of my project. If I turn it on, my name shows up. If you're doing a project that has a few of you, you can't sort of put multiple people in the author role, but you can use the photo credits. That's a live text box. I can add in manual credits and acknowledge other people. So if it was a team effort, I might turn off my own authoring credit and then put the creative credits or the author credits inside the photo credit area as well. And I can choose whether I want to get noticed by the Creative Cloud Express servers. They every once in a while sort of go through and find stuff that's interesting to feature on the Creative Cloud Express website. Once I've done those things, it's just a matter of choosing Create Link. And within a few seconds, the entire project is published and is effectively live. Right now, if you were to somehow magically be able to memorize this rather long URL, you could actually go to this link right now and it would be live. I can just choose copy, and I can paste that into anything, whether it's a Teams chat, anywhere you can paste anything. I can pop it into an email if I want to. And I've also got social media options here to start sharing my project. And this is something I really like about Creative Cloud Express, is that I don't have to wait to tell people about this cool thing I did. I don't have to rebuild stuff. I can just click on my Facebook link here. It's going to pop up a modal dialog box, add a link to the project, and I can say, hey, check out my latest project, and away I go, right? So I'm not going to do it in this case because this is a draft, but very similar concept for Twitter. I can share to Google Classroom, share to Microsoft Teams, start an email where I can drop the link in, or there's that mystical embed code I was mentioning earlier. Now, this is the long embed code, which works with a lot of third-party authoring tools, probably like WordPress and things like that. Where it won't work is Behance and Adobe Portfolio. Neither of those tools like the JavaScript component to this because they're, I find it ironic because this is an Adobe product and we're trying to embed it into another Adobe product, but it won't touch the embed code. It'll always say it's wrong. So you have to go with a very simple embed code, which I can make shareable. I'll show you on screen in a minute what it is, but it's a much simpler embed code than this. All right. So that's the whole thing there. So if I was going to put this into WordPress, it would be fine. As far as I know, I have not tested it, but that's the idea. But for Adobe, putting into Portfolio or Behance, the embed code is a little bit different. It doesn't include all the JavaScript. But basically, at this point, this is published. So if I copy this to the clipboard and I create a brand new tab and hit paste, boom, there it is. There's the project, right down to the fact I have not changed the title. I'm still calling it a draft. Okay. But this is it. This is the live audience ready version of that draft that I was working on. So it's there and ready to be viewed. Not super discoverable unless I socialize it. Obviously, this is not like a customized link. I can't do anything with that, but I can get that out there through my own social channels and generate awareness for the project. One thing I do want to point out, though, that I really like about the way this works is that this URL is persistent. Okay, so what I mean by that is as I make changes or updates or corrections to this project in the editing mode, as soon as I publish those changes, they're live in this published version. So if I go back to my original here, or my original draft, I'm going to close that sharing window, and let's get rid of the words draft or the word draft. Okay. All right, so that's gone. And I might just say, I'm going to put a word in here just so we can see a difference. Update. I don't confuse it with my actual published one. And then basically go back to share, publish and share. You'll notice that when that dialog box pops up, you'll see that it's no longer publish the link, it's update the link. So when I click update, take a few seconds. This amount of time will vary depending on how long your project is. There is no, that I know of, any limit to the length of this project. I can make this as long as I want, incorporate as much as I want, but the bigger it is, the more images, so on, the longer it takes to actually upload. So there's the link is exactly the same as it was before. So if I go back to that test, there was the one that said Morning at the Marsh draft. If I refresh this, Morning at the Marsh update. All right. So no more worries about, did I send everybody the right PDF or PowerPoint deck? Or do I have to resend it because I spelled somebody's name wrong? I don't have to do that. I just make the correction. Everybody has the link. I don't have to, make any changes. I don't have to resend any documents. It's there and it's live for them to view. Okay. Cool. Now, I want to point out a couple other things here too. When you have a long page, and this was a COVID-19 project I did the first year of the pandemic, and it basically journaled 15 or 16 weeks of the pandemic, my first 15 or 16 weeks when we hit lockdown here in Ontario. I had to keep myself sane, and this was one of the ways to do it. I didn't go anywhere until near the very end, the last week or two. Everything was shot around my house. With my phone or my camera, it didn't matter. I just wanted to make images and try to find some beauty in places. And I started this journaling process. And it got to be, and I won't go through the whole thing here, but it got to be a very long web page. Okay. So I'm not going to scroll all the way through it. But what I ended up doing was I created a table of contents. These are basically anchor tags to different parts of my websites. This is something a lot of people don't realize you can do with Creative Cloud Express Web, is you can create internal links to other parts of your website. Now, like any anchor tag, depending on the length of your project, it may not be 100% accurate. It'll get you close, but if it's like at the very end of the article, you may not be exactly lined up with your titles, but it'll get you close. But there's a trick or a hack to this. You have to publish the page first, and then add the links afterwards. The reason is when you're in editing mode, you don't have the actual HTML to work with to generate the the anchor tags. So what I have to do is, in my case, what I did every week that I built out this, I would add another link here, a piece, and this is just straightforward text. I would publish the project. The link would be a dead link. It would just be text at that point. And then I would go to my project and actually locate that spot and copy that link. Now, how do I do that? I'm going to show you. This is in my editing mode here. And if I take a look down here at say weeks 1 and 2. If I go to my hyperlinks, now this one's already got a live link, but basically this is where I would put that link in. I would select the text and paste the link. This is currently a link to the old version of Creative Cloud Express, which was called Spark. So one of the things I want to do is I'll probably want to update this to say express.adobe.com. But regardless of that, what I want to do is show you how I actually was able to find this link in the first place. So let me see if I do have it live. This is the live version, okay? And if I scroll down to the bottom, make sure you've taken your Gravol when I do this. Let me just get this down a bit. There we go. It's going to go pretty quick there. And where'd you go? There you go. Right down near the bottom. Sorry for the speed ramp here. There we go. Week 3, weeks 1 and 2. Okay. Here's the trick. In order to create these links, you have to have something to hang on to. And the way Express works with this is it uses H1s and H2s as your navigational anchors.
Right.
All right. So this is an H2, heading 2. And you see as I mouse over this, this is the published version. This is live. Okay. People can view this project. As when I hit the published version and scroll to one of those heading links, I can just click on that little hyperlink beside, beside the text, and that will copy that link to the clipboard. Then I'll go back to the version that's editable, select my text, and then just paste in the new link and save it. And now that link is effectively added or corrected in my case. So again, I'll just double click on that text. Because I'm in editing mode, the links don't work. It's all about editing. So select the text, click on the hyperlink, paste in your link. In my case, it's a link to something else in the same document, but it could also be a link to any other website that you wanted it to be. But for that internal navigation where you've got that really long Spark page, this is one way to deal with that. And you might have noticed as well, if I hop over to the published version, I've got back to top links as well. So these are just, again, anchor tags, right? And they take me back to the very first heading in my document. So if I click on this, it's going to go back up. And it's going to take me right to basically the table of contents, which is the first heading in my document, right? And I've scattered those those back to top links all over the place. And it's because this is a ridiculously long page, right? If it was a shorter page, I wouldn't be doing a lot of that work, but there's another one there. I just click and it'll take me back to the top as well. So that just gives me a way to sort of navigate through the project if it's a long project. All right. So anchor links, we looked at that. Alt tags, we talked about that. Changing the theme, we talked about that. Collaboration, we talked about that. Going through my notes to make sure I don't miss anything. One thing we didn't talk about is video. Okay, so you can do it, didn't show you how to do it. So I'm going to go into one of my other projects. Let's see, this is the test version, my morning at the marsh. And I'm not going to go far here, but I'm going to go and add a video right here. Okay, just below this paragraph. Now I need a link for this. So I'm going to go to YouTube. YouTube or Vimeo both work here. And basically I grab the share link, copy that link, And then when I go back to my project, I just click on that plus sign again, and this time choose video. And just paste it in, save it, and there it is right in my doc. Real quick and easy. Not having to upload video or worry about bandwidth. It's just basically taking you out to YouTube. So not a super fancy link, but it does work. It does require you to actually have the video hosted on a service. Vimeo and YouTube are the two examples I tend to refer to, but that's the idea there. So really quick and easy to do. Now, if I'm in editing mode, but if I click on preview mode to test it out, it'll load the page. Wow, we're almost out of time. We are out of time, actually. All right, well, basically, yeah, there we go.
There it goes.
And then just click on the play button. It'll go full screen, and I can watch my video, and then just escape out when I'm done.
Nice view there, too.
Yeah, that's morning at the cottage, really early in the morning.
Beautiful.
So I got through pretty much everything. I didn't cover some of the exact how-tos on working with some of the tools, like adding a glide show. But if you click on the plus sign anywhere and choose glide show, this is your workflow. You basically either upload photos, go to your Lightroom gallery, pull stuff from the Adobe stock photos that are here if that's what you prefer. You can search Adobe stock for specific types of images. I can pull stuff off Creative Cloud, my Creative Cloud account, or Dropbox if I want to. And basically each image allows you to add content into that image. The only thing I'll mention here, I'm just going to add an image just for the sake of adding an image. And I added it twice. I can change the order of these. Let's just close this because it won't look any different. I'll add a different one. There we go. I can change the order of these guys back up and down. Right now, I can do anything I want, not going to damage anything. But when I click save, if I start adding text or anything to these areas, try that again, Jim. Let's actually choosing the text. As soon as I've added something, if I go back and click on the main image here, you'll get that little pop-up. You'll see an option to edit photos. If I go back here, you'll notice if you look really close, there's a little box in the upper right, upper left corner that indicates there's been something added on top of the background image. If I try to delete this and not replace the image, but delete it completely, I get a message saying, hey, you're going to lose anything else that's on that screen. So just be aware of that. Just think before you click, basically, is the point I'm trying to make there. Okay, I could obviously keep talking for quite some time on this. If you haven't tried the web component of Creative Cloud Express, it's a great tool for you to communicate. It's a great tool for if you've got kids in school, they want to tell a story, they want to write an essay or something, but want to do it in a different manner. PowerPoint isn't their jam. This could be their jam or their peanut butter. There's no nut allergies involved. It'll be a great communication tool. So Andrew's got that link for that links out to a bunch of other projects I've done, as well as other projects other people have done that I thought were really interesting. You can always reach out to me if you have questions.
I was going to say that Thomas made a comment about easy peasy on adding video. I assume Adobe handles all the HTML5 video format weirdness.
It does, because it's not actually handling any video at all. It's handling it from a link that you've embedded from YouTube or Vimeo. So we're letting the video services do all the heavy lifting. You're not actually embedding the actual video content. You're only embedding a link to the video, which also means if you're offline, the video is not going to work. So keep that in mind. But yeah, good question.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions from anybody? But yeah, I wanted to remind everyone that once again, you can find Jim at jimbabbage.photography, behance.net/Jim Babbage, and Instagram.com, Jim Babbage.
It's Jim, all the time, Jim.
That's right. Jim Babbage.
Well, I Thank you, everyone, for hanging in there, and I hope you got something out of this. And Andrew, thanks for inviting me and having me here to do this.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much. It was great. And thanks everyone for attending. And as usual, I will be posting the link to the recording everywhere in the Facebook groups. It's on my YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, social network, everywhere. So, and then Thomas says, thank you very much from Elon Town, future home of Twitter, Texas.
Take care, Thomas.
Yep. I will. Yeah. Thanks everyone for attending, and I'll have Jim back again. And it could be more Adobe Creative Cloud Express love, or it could be some Photoshop or Lightroom. Maybe some Lightroom focus.
Yeah, some Lightroom fun. Lightroom would be fun. Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. I will. Thanks everybody. Have a great rest of the week, and see you online.
Take care.